Do you wish you could prevent big behaviors, explosive meltdowns, tantrums before they even happen? Today, I'm hoping to share with you 5 tools and strategies that you can use to hopefully do just that and prevent the behaviors before they even start. These are the same strategies and tools that I consistently use in my classroom to help my students be able to communicate what they need rather than relying on those behaviors. And today I'm hoping to teach you just that. Let's get started. So the first strategy is not so much a strategy as a foundational step before the other ones I'm going to suggest, which is to figure out why your child is acting the way they are. Now, might seem like, of course I want to know why, or of course I already know why. But all behavior is a form of communication. This is what was drilled into me in my special education credential program, and also something I drill into my staff. All behavior is a form of communication. So what we want to figure out first is, what is your son or daughter trying to communicate? The one that might be the most obvious to you is the thing I hear so many parents say, and my mom used to say to me all the time, and I'm guilty of saying to my daughter, is a physiological need. You're tired, you're sick, you're hungry, all totally valid reasons to feel frustrated, and it's something that affects us as adults as well. But we want to figure out in our children so we can provide help and mitigate those behaviors. Some other ones that you might also think about is tangible items. Your child wants something, or maybe a food item, or even an experience that is really important to them, but for whatever reason right now we just can't give in to them. Another thing they might be trying to communicate is not so much something they want, but it's something that they want to escape from. You might think of chores, homework, going to visit a relative they don't really like. Those are things that they might want to escape, which can be a very, very powerful motivation. For example, I have a learning disability, pretty significant dyslexia, which you might notice throughout videos. But because of that disability, reading in front of people is like terrifying to me. And as a child, I would have done anything to escape that situation, even if it meant getting in trouble for leaving the classroom or for acting out. Or even it's so motivating for some children that they'll break their glasses. So they say, I can't read, I can't see the paper, because it's so motivating. And as an adult, you might see that behavior, the breaking of the glasses, the running out of the classroom, and think, what terrible behavior. But in reality, figuring out what they're trying to escape, why they're trying to escape it, we can help. Another thing that your child might be trying to communicate is their discomfort with the sensory input around them. And your mind might go straight to autism, because absolutely, a lot of people on the autism spectrum are impacted and feel dysregulated by the sensory input around them. You might think loud noises, but it could be a lot more than that. It might be that they are feeling terror in their body because of an alarm they can hear going off 2 streets away, something we might not even realize if you're more neurotypical or just affected differently neurologically. For me, for instance, I struggle with misophonia, so small, subtle sounds like someone chewing might make me really feel dysregulated, and as a child, it made me explode in instant rage, and no one could help me if they don't know why I'm acting that way. So again, first thing, figure out why, and sensory might be something to take into consideration. Another factor that could be leading to their communication through behavior is the need for attention. This is pretty much universal for every child, every young adult, every individual on this planet, is that they need attention. And so that's something to take into consideration. And you might think, why on earth would my child tear the house apart if they want my attention? But bad attention is attention, and so it can be a really motivating factor for children too. So take that into consideration. Are they seeking my attention? Last but certainly not least, something to consider is change in routine, which can often make children feel really upset, which also results in a behavior. I said last but not least, but this is not all-inclusive. There could be other reasons why. It just generally fits under one of these categories. But a change in routine is something to think about. Again, if your son or daughter is neurodiverse, this can be more common, but in general, children like to know routine. If they know something's coming and that changes, that can be really disappointing and lead to a behavior. So those, generally speaking, are the categories that things might fit in as to why your child is acting a certain way, and that is step 1. Moving on to step 2. I said step 2, but it's more like strategy, no particular order. So strategy number 2 is all about communication. And after listening to the foundations in number 1, you can see why communication is so important. Now, I could make 100 videos about this, probably more, on all the different aspects of communication, and I don't have time for that right now. So what I really want you to take away from this video is to help your child to communicate what it is that they're struggling with that we figured out in strategy 1. If they're hungry, do they know how to express they're hungry? If they're thirsty, do they know how to express that they're thirsty? If they're sick, do they know how to express that they're sick? If they're tired. So think about that and how can you help them to be able to express that. Overall, you want to model to this child how to communicate. If they are nonverbal, you want to also utilize pictures to help them. So for instance, I have worked with a lot of young women who have menstrual cycles and have menstrual cramps and are unable to communicate this. Something that's happening month after month after month, which it was really important to me to help them be able to communicate that. So when I could tell she's in pain, she's showing all those symptoms, I used her AAC device, her iPad, to communicate, but also you can just print out pictures of her when she's feeling pain, or of a figure that's expressing pain to help them figure out how to express it themselves in the future. So then that way, before it's reached that point that she's so uncomfortable, then you want to be able to have her come up to you, show her the picture, or express that she's feeling uncomfortable, and then you can provide the aid, medicine, heat pack, whatever it is. Strategy number 3 is to create a very consistent routine. In number 1, I mentioned how sometimes a change in routine can cause individuals to get upset, but just in general, people, whether you're a child, whether you're an adult, whether you have special needs, whether you don't, consistency provides reassurance. It helps us know what to expect. It helps reduce anxiety, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's been a game changer in my classroom to not only provide a consistent schedule, but provide a visual so they know what to expect, whether that changes weekly or daily. It's shown, they know it, and it's something that can be referenced. I also suggest, as much as possible, getting your kids involved in this because that can be a huge motivating factor. So if morning routine is difficult, for instance, use a visual schedule to help them figure out, okay, what order do we want to get ready in the morning? Give them some choice in it, because it really doesn't matter whether they wash their hands first or brush their teeth, but give them some say in the matter and create that chart together. Use animated pictures, use pictures of them, whatever makes them more excited to do it. And in terms of a routine, it's very, very important, super important as the adult, to schedule in transition time. Our kids, generally speaking, don't really care about being on time to the dentist or being on time to school, or in my classroom about the amount of time that's work versus recreational time. That's for us to figure out how to best help them in that transition, and it's just not realistic to give them 60 seconds to get out the house. And I've seen this happen with friends, with family, very, very, very loving, well-intentioned parents, but their rush gets put on the kids get overwhelmed, the kids are still playing, they're not going to get out the door right away or get into the bathtub right away. So schedule in transition time. For me and my toddler, I provide her like 20 minutes of transition time from when the timer goes off to when I need whatever it is to be done or to be begun to start. I make sure I give her that time, because if not, I'm stressed and I'm putting that stress on her. And one thing I like to think about is, often even as adults, when you're in a room with a bunch of adults and dinner's ready and you say, okay, dinner's ready. Do the adults stop what they're doing, instantly turn and go to the table? If you're at a work meeting, does everyone stop their work instantly to gather? No, it takes a while to get people. You want to finish your email, you want to finish your last thought, you want to finish your call, whatever it is that you're doing. And we should try and have those same expectations and understandings for the youth as well, or for people with special needs, because it's kind of goes for all of us. Number 4 strategy is probably one of my favorite, and that's positive reinforcement. And this is almost like a magic trick, once you figure it out and you master it, a way to help your child do what it is that you expect of them, that you would like for them to do. And that is to recognize when they're doing it and reinforce that. Like I mentioned in that first strategy in figuring out why, children are highly, highly, highly motivated by attention. And so if you can give them attention for what you want them to do, it really helps to guide that behavior and show them what it is you want them to do. Similarly, you want to ignore behaviors you don't like, but that's a whole nother video in itself. Right now, I want you to focus on figuring out what you want them to do and how can you reinforce it. Again, back to step number 1. If your son and daughter is very motivated by a certain food item, by their favorite toy, by going to a really fun park or a really fun restaurant, something like that, reinforce them by working towards that. If it's something small, maybe earning 5-10 minutes on their iPad or with a preferred item for doing something that's less preferred, maybe one of those things they want to escape, then they know, hey, I don't like doing this chore, but I'm gonna earn this next. If it's something bigger, like I can't take her to the restaurant every night, no. But you can create a pretty simple chart, or you can purchase one where they are getting stickers or getting stamps or smiley faces or some sort of reward to earn that final prize. If you have a chart like this though, you want to be like very, very, very proactive about spotting what they're doing that you like and reinforcing it. In my classroom, when I start a new skill and introduce it, I am handing out those stickers like Oprah Winfrey giving out cards. That's not a good example because I think she only did that like that one time really big, but you understand what I mean? We're giving them out often, and you're recognizing them as much as possible. If you have more than one kid, perfect, even better. You want to recognize it because they notice it in each other, and then they want to copy and be recognized for good things. So that's number 4, positive reinforcement. Last and certainly not least, number 5 is to break big tasks into smaller ones. As I mentioned, for some people, it's that like desire to escape a certain situation, which again, step 1, we're going to figure out. But once you've done that, we can make those bigger steps, those bigger tasks that feel really overwhelming for our children, and help break them down. You might be thinking, I'm only asking them to do 20 minutes of homework. I know they know how to do. They don't need to break it down. But something that might seem really simple to us can feel really daunting to them. Or if you're working with someone who has special needs, a task that you might give them, you might think that they already know how to do this. We want to make sure they know how to do this, because if we're asking them to do something they don't know how to do, that in itself is reason to have a behavior. So what we want to do is break it down into smaller steps. If it's something like a list of chores, do one at a time. If it's one chore that they're still learning how to do, literally break it up into every little piece. Let's gather the supplies. We do that, awesome, reinforcement. Great, let's look at what the next step is. And I'm pointing at my hand, just imagining like a visual outline of what those steps are to make the bed in the morning. Or again, back to the visual schedule of what their morning routine looks like. You want them to be able to do something independently. How can we break that into steps to help them be successful and reinforce them throughout the way? So those are the 5 strategies. But before you go, a kind of bonus strategy is to have a plan. As much as I would love to give you these strategies and say, your son or daughter will never ever have a behavior again, that's just not realistic. Even as adults, we have big emotions and big behaviors at times. So give yourself grace, give your child grace, and just think of this as like baby steps to improving. It's not going to happen overnight, but I promise if you implement these things, you will see improvement. And just be prepared for when they do have a behavior, how can we help regulate them? Because once your child is at that point of being escalated, even with these strategies, you can't instantly bring them down. But if before they become escalated, you can teach them strategies to help, then you can implement those. So for instance, for my daughter, it's going outside is our strategy because it really helps regulate her. We're not going out to play like a normal experience, but we're going out to look at the trees, to listen to the sounds, to feel the wind, and it helps her calm down. So to figure out for the people that you're working with, what helps them when they're at that point, and then more importantly, how can we prevent it for future times? Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you got something out of it, and stay tuned for more. Bye.